working hard, paying taxes in full, raising children as people, contributing to the community. Baby boomer generation was once the backbone that built America's prosperity. But now, they are the people who are most likely to become homeless. Shriveling pensions, skyrocketing rents, insufficient health insurance cover are all dragging the once unsung hero of the US economy into a spiral with no way out. Cities that were once considered prosperous hubs, from San Diego, San Francisco to Miami and New York, are now witnessing a wave of seniors falling into the sky and earth. The bitter thing is that many of them never thought they would end their lives in such a situation. In today's video, we'll dive into the 10 largest cities in the United States, where the situation is worse than ever. This is not only a social phenomenon, but also a mirror reflecting the breakdown in the welfare system of modern America. And when we look at it, perhaps we will see a glimpse of our own future. Once honored in the top 4 most livable cities in America, San Diego now faces a bitter paradox, becoming the focus of the homeless crisis. And the group most affected is the elderly. In just the past 5 years, the number of people over 55 forced to seek emergency assistance services has skyrocketed 84%, nearly double the overall increase of 43%. Currently, 29% of homeless people in San Diego are over 55 years old. The sad thing is that 80% of them were born and raised in this place, not immigrated from other places. The main reason stems from skyrocketing housing costs. A 74-year-old man recalled that he was pushed out of his apartment for many years when rent increased from $800 to $1,600 per month. Meanwhile, the only pension he received was just $1,000 a month, too little to maintain a roof. For many other elderly people, this situation is like a sentence hanging over their heads. San Diego's supply of affordable housing, and especially dedicated senior housing, is nearly non-existent. Meanwhile, the majority of people entering retirement age have to rely on Social Security benefits, a fixed income that cannot keep up with escalating prices day by day. Many people are forced to choose to pay for medicine, to buy food, or to keep accommodation. And often they are not strong enough to keep all three. Many cases still fall into crisis due to personal events. Job loss, illness, divorce, or the passing of a loved one is the final financial fulcrum. With no provisions, they soon fell into a spiral of homelessness and were stuck on the streets. The consequences left behind are even more severe. Studies show that a homeless person over 50 years old is often as healthy as a 70 to 80-year-old person in the general population. Chronic diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and memory loss are increasingly becoming a burden. Without access to the health system, they miss opportunities for early screening and treatment. In addition, constant stress, depression, and anxiety, leading many to turn to harmful behaviors as a way to escape reality. Volunteer organizations and medical experts all warned. Dr. Margot Kuschel, UCSF, emphasized, homelessness is a housing problem, not simply a mental matter or a bad thing. Forecasts show that the number of people over 65 years old living under the sky and earth will triple from 2017 to 2030 without drastic intervention. At safe sleeping sites, safe camping sites for homeless people, nearly half of the accommodation is being used by people over 55 years old. But this temporary solution is no substitute for a stable and long-lasting roof. The final message is clear. All avenues for resolution must go through the housing problem. It is necessary to build more low-cost houses, retain old house funds, and increase rental subsidies for the elderly. If we don't act today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, we'll have more silver-headed roofs to throw on the streets of San Diego. Can a society built by those same elderly people accept that they have to grow old without a home to return to? And if today we are indifferent, then tomorrow, will our descendants have to face this very scary reality? At 4 a.m. in Phoenix, Arizona, the temperature reached 29 degrees Celsius. In that harsh heat, the zone, area with thousands of homeless people, is still dense with tents. More worryingly, the number of elderly people appearing here is increasing. In just a short time, there have been cases of leaving on the streets, exposing the severity of this crisis. One of the haunting stories is that of a homeless man, 62-year-old Peter Moyer. He once owned a successful limousine company, serving famous stars like Diana Ross or Halle Berry. But when his wife became seriously ill, he had to sell all his assets and spend $65,000 of his savings in just 4 months to pay for hospital fees. Before he could recover, he faced another shock. Rent skyrocketed from $700 to $1,500 in just 3 months. No longer able to pay, he had to live in a car, then gradually went out when the car broke down. Now, Peter looks to Justice Center Dash, a senior homeless support center Dash, where he can temporarily find meals, cool air-conditioned seats, and internet connections. Peter's story is not unique. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the government also had many housing assistance programs. But after the epidemic, subsidies were cut, while rent prices increased unprecedentedly. With a fixed income of only about $800 to $1,300 per month, the majority of elderly people cannot keep up with living expenses. There is a heartbreaking case like a 90-year-old woman who was asked by her new homeowner to leave within 10 days, after a lifetime of never knowing the scene of heaven shining on earth. Behind the numbers are very real lives. A 62-year-old homeless man who served in the military and worked as a retail manager now has to live on the streets. Or another 61-year-old man with epilepsy who once fell convulsively on a concrete platform as hot as 81 degrees Celsius, resulting in severe burns to 30% of his body. Or a 68-year-old woman who worked in Nebraska all her life, but when she moved to Arizona, she lost her identification documents. Despite having a pension of $1,300 per month, she was unable to rent a house due to lack of documents and had to live on the streets. The situation in Phoenix shows a worrying big picture. In January 2025 alone, the city recorded 9,642 homeless people, of which nearly half had no shelter. The zone alone has about 1,500 people, with more than 600 people sleeping outdoors every night. Forecasts are even more pessimistic. By 2026, the number of people over 55 years old falling homeless could reach 225,000 people, an increase of 32% compared to 2017. What makes many people sad is paradox. Baby boomer generation, who once contributed sweat and effort to build prosperity for America, now has to face old age without a roof. Even though there are dedicated support centers like Justice Center, those resources are still too small compared to the growing scale of the crisis. Old people don't just lose their roof, they lose both dignity and faith in the future. Can a society that once boasted wealth and civilization accept its parents and grandparents aging on the sidewalk? And if even the generation that built America's prosperity has no place to turn, what will tomorrow be like for us and our children and grandchildren? Sacramento was once considered the peaceful city of California, where many families chose to live because the cost of living is lower than San Francisco or Los Angeles. But that picture is changing rapidly. Over the past decade, Sacramento has been at the center of a silent crisis. Seniors are increasingly being pushed off their own roofs. According to recent estimates, the proportion of people over 55 in Sacramento's homeless population has grown unprecedentedly fast. Within just a few years, this number is said to have nearly doubled, and it is worth noting that the majority of them are long-standing local residents. Not immigrants, not wanderers, but the grandparents and parents of families who have been with Sacramento for decades. Where is the cause? Part of it comes from escalating housing costs. Rents in Sacramento, once considered pleasant, have now skyrocketed after a wave of people from the Gulf region flocking to find cheaper places to live. The pensions and social security payments of many elderly people cannot keep up. Just a small slip, an unexpected medical bill, a debt incurred, and their whole life suddenly lost their home. There are initiatives from the private sector that are being referred to as a glimmer of hope. Organizations collaborating with major brands in the construction and finance sectors are testing low-cost small house models or flexible rental programs. Some opinions say that if there is stronger participation from large businesses such as Wells Fargo, a corporation that has its headquarters right in California, providing capital for low-cost housing projects could create breakthrough. Can a city that once boasted of being a livable place accept that its builders themselves grow old without a roof? And if Sacramento fails today to protect the elderly generation, who will still believe in the dream of settling in America tomorrow? Los Angeles, city of aura, of movie stars and American dreams. But behind the dazzling billboards in Hollywood Boulevard, there's a reality few want to face. Thousands of seniors are sleeping on sidewalks, under bridges, or crowded into makeshift tents. That contrast stunned many, because what was once seen as a symbol of opportunity and prosperity is now seeing the downfall of the same senior citizens, who once contributed to America's prosperity. According to recent reports, Los Angeles is currently one of the cities with the highest rate of homeless people in the country, and the over 55 group is the fastest growing segment in many years. The most talked about causes include skyrocketing housing costs, inadequate pensions, and unexpected hospital bills that could wipe out all the meager savings. Although the city government has implemented many support programs, the situation continues to worsen. Some of the solutions discussed include building more social housing, expanding affordable health services, and creating conditions for the elderly to have stable housing before they fall into homelessness. Non-profits and large corporations such as United Healthcare are also participating, funding public healthcare and affordable housing projects to prevent this tragedy from spreading further. Can a city known as the paradise of opportunity continue to ignore the reality of its parents and grandparents aging on the sidewalk? And if the generation that built Los Angeles today is left alone, what will await future generations? San Francisco has long been known as one of America's most beautiful and livable cities, with the iconic Golden Gate Bridge, poetic hills, and the spirit of innovation from Silicon Valley. But if walking along Market Street or the streets near Civic Center, one can easily see a completely different picture. Old men and women huddled in old blankets, setting up temporary tents right on the sidewalk. San Francisco has one of the most expensive living expenses in the United States. Rents are several times higher than the fixed income level of the elderly, while pensions and social assistance do not keep pace. Just a small rent increase can cause an elderly person to lose his home and stay for decades. Some people used to have homes and stable jobs, but when their health deteriorated, the cost of medicine and hospital fees far exceeded their ability to pay. When having to choose between healing and keeping the house, many people have to accept losing their refuge. The city government tried measures such as building temporary housing, providing mobile health services, or connecting volunteer organizations to provide support. However, the need is so great that those efforts are like salt abandoned in the sea. A wealthy city like San Francisco can boast modern technology and skyscrapers, but can it be proud to let thousands of seniors live on the streets? And if even those who have devoted their lives to society are not protected, who will be safe in the future? Seattle, a city famous for its bustling cafes, bustling harbors, and majestic natural landscapes, is now facing a heartbreaking reality. Its seniors are becoming a growing group fastest among the homeless population. In the last few years, the number of people over the age of 55 who have had to turn to emergency assistance services has increased significantly, showing a clear paradox. A city rich but unable to protect those who have contributed to society. The main reason stems from skyrocketing housing costs. Many older persons living on pensions or social assistance cannot keep up with escalating rents, while the availability of affordable housing and homes for the elderly is extremely limited. Some people have to choose between paying for medicine or food or keeping a place to live. Seattle's homeless assistance centers, despite their best efforts, meet only a tiny fraction of the actual needs. Elderly people have to wait in line for each meal and each safe place to sleep. Several large non-profits and businesses such as Walmart have been involved in providing temporary assistance, ranging from food to emergency housing funds, but this has not been enough to fully address the problem. The state of affairs in Seattle is a reminder of the current system's inability to protect the generation, seniors who once contributed to the city's prosperity. Without strong action, the number of elderly people living on the streets will continue to increase. The solution needs to be aimed at building more affordable housing, increasing housing subsidies for the elderly, and leveraging resources from the community and businesses to provide long-term shelter. The support programs of large corporations like Walmart can play a key role in creating safe fulcrum points. If even wealthy and developed cities like Seattle cannot protect the elderly, what future awaits generations to come? Can we create a system that ensures real well-being for all elderly people, or still leave them lost in the middle of a crowded city? New York City, which is known as the heart of America, has long been the dream of millions of immigrants and workers. But behind the bright lights of Times Square and the towering buildings of Manhattan, a cold truth is emerging. The number of homeless seniors in New York is growing at an alarming rate. The cost of living in New York is among the highest in the United States. Even after retirement, many elderly people still struggle with constantly escalating rent. A tiny flat in peripheral districts can also cost almost all of a pension or social security benefit. Just one event such as illness, loss of a loved one, or termination of a landlord, they are immediately pushed into a spiral of losing their home. The city has coordinated with many non-profit organizations and large corporations to find directions. Some businesses like Amazon have funded affordable housing programs and social service support in an effort to help seniors stay permanently. However, these efforts are still just like sea salt when compared to the huge actual needs of a city of nearly 9 million people. If even New York, symbol of wealth and modernity, cannot guarantee a home for those who have devoted their lives, what will the future of the older generation in other cities be like? And can a country that once boasted of being a promised land continue to ignore the sight of its grandparents and parents having to huddle on the cold streets? Amesbury, a small town located in northeastern Massachusetts, is famous for its peace and close-knit community. But right where it seems like is easier to breathe than big cities, the situation of elderly people falling into homelessness is also gradually becoming a sad reality. Unlike New York or Los Angeles, in Amesbury, the small size does not make the problem any less serious, but makes it even more obvious. When an old man has to sleep on the street in this town, the whole community perceives the absence of safety and the collapse of the support system. Housing costs in Amesbury have increased rapidly in recent years, as many people from major cities move here to find quieter living environments. This unintentionally pushes rent and living costs beyond the means of those who live on only a limited pension. Many old men and women, after losing their partners or having no one to take care of them, are silently pushed to the margins of society. They could no longer afford to maintain the small roof that had been with them for many years, and ended up in makeshift shelters or even wandering the streets. In view of this situation, some large corporations have become interested in supporting affordable housing in small towns. Walmart, with a widespread presence in the US, has implemented community programs to support food and housing for the elderly. Although these solutions are not enough to root out the problem, they at least bring hope to those in dire straits. Would a rich country like America let even small towns like Amesbury witness their grandparents no longer have a place to live? And if a small community can't protect the weakest? Can we believe that larger cities will do better? Chicago. City is known as Heart of America, which is famous for its skyscrapers, diverse culture, and history of hard work. But behind the bright lights of the city center, thousands of elderly people are facing a scary reality. They lost their home right where they had been all their lives. Chicago is not only an industrial center, but also a place that witnessed the harsh decline of the old men and women who contributed to building this city. The root cause starts with the rising cost of living. In many areas, rents have skyrocketed to unbelievable levels for those who rely solely on pensions and social benefits. In addition, violence and security instability have caused many neighborhoods that were previously home to the working class to become areas where it is difficult to live peacefully. When an elderly person loses an additional source of income or no longer has relatives to care for them, they immediately become vulnerable to being pushed off the roof. However, Chicago still has efforts from the community and businesses. Amazon, with its community support programs, has funded a number of housing and necessities initiatives for the elderly. These projects cannot completely replace the flawed welfare system, but at least show that there are hands reaching out, bringing hope to seemingly forgotten lives. If even cities rich in labor traditions like Chicago cannot protect the senior generation, what does that say about the value that society is now prioritizing? And will one day we, ourselves or our descendants, face the same situation when old age strikes? Denver City is located in the middle of the majestic Rocky Mountains, long known as an ideal place to live with fresh air and active community. But behind that beautiful picture of nature is a grim reality. More and more elderly people here are falling into homelessness. That opposition makes Denver one of the hotbeds of the housing crisis for older adults across the United States. Additionally, Denver's harsh climate makes life on the streets especially cruel. Winter here has heavy snowfall and low temperatures, directly endangering those who have to sleep in temporary tents or on sidewalks. Many shelters are often overcrowded, while waiting lists for social housing last for years. Some reports indicate that there are people who have to wait up to 5 to 7 years to have the opportunity to be allocated a cheap apartment, and for the elderly, that time is sometimes longer than the rest of their lives. However, Denver did not completely turn its back on the weak. Several large businesses have participated in community initiatives, typically Walmart, with food assistance programs and emergency housing fund funding. Even though these efforts are just like small patches in a giant hole, they still bring some hope to those on the margins of society, especially the generation that has worked all their lives to build nation. When a resource-rich city like Denver also allows its elders to suffer from heaven and earth, is that a warning to the entire United States? And if previous generations were not even guaranteed a home, what can we expect for ourselves in the future? When we look at Denver, we clearly see a heartbreaking paradox. A city that is prosperous, full of opportunities, but leaves those who have contributed their entire lives to society to live on the streets. This is not only Denver's own story, but also a reflection of a rapidly aging America, as the welfare system becomes increasingly patchy. If today we ignore the pain of our parents' generation, who will care about us tomorrow? Can a country that once boasted of the American dream continue to stand firm when its builders no longer have a place to call home? Share your thoughts under the comments section and click follow so you don't miss the truth stories that are being forgotten in America today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to spread neglected truths together and to not miss the heart-touching stories about America today. The information in this video watch article is compiled from many different sources, including news, analysis, and sharing from the community. Some details may be estimated or not sufficiently verified and are intended to provide a reference perspective only. The content does not represent the official opinion of any organization, agency, or individual. Viewers should learn more for themselves before making any conclusions or decisions.